December 17th, 1944, near Stavelot, Belgium. Snowflakes drift through the smoke of burning trucks. The forest around the Ardennes is alive with the thunder of tank engines, the last great gamble of the Third Reich. Colonel Joachim Peiper, commander of the 1st SS Panzer Regiment of the Leibstandarte Adolf Hitler Division, stands on the hood of a wrecked Kubelwagen, binoculars raised. His eyes trace a narrow Belgian road now clogged with vehicles, tigers, panthers, half-tracks, fuel Bowsers and horse-drawn wagons frozen in place. The air reeks of diesel, sweat and cordite. From the east, German artillery thunders in support. From the west, the muted growl of American Shermans answers back. Between them, the Ardennes forest. Silent, deceptive, deadly. Los! Schneller! Peiper barks, his voice cutting through the cold air. His armoured spearhead has broken through the American lines faster than anyone expected. In 2 days, his men have advanced over 40 miles, smashing through the green US divisions that never saw them coming. But victory feels strange. The roads are littered with abandoned German trucks, their fuel tanks bone dry. The offensive is moving faster than the fuel trains can follow. At 09:45, scouts return with news that feels like a miracle. They've discovered a massive American fuel dump near Bullingen. Rows upon rows of 55-gallon drums glint under the pale winter sun. Tens of thousands of gallons untouched. Peiper dismounts, his boots crunching over the snow. He removes a glove and dips a finger into one of the open drums. The smell of American gasoline, sweeter, purer, higher octane, fills his lungs. He allows himself a rare grin. Vielleicht. Gott ist doch auf unserer Seite. Maybe God is still on our side. Orders snap out like gunfire. Crews siphon the fuel into captured jeeps and trucks. Panzer engines roar to life, their throats finally quenched. For a moment, it feels like the old days, the unstoppable blitzkrieg reborn. But as Peiper looks over the horizon, at the endless columns of tanks and trucks crawling west, doubt flickers. Each vehicle burns hundreds of litres a day. Each turn of the track eats more fuel than they can ever capture. A young lieutenant salutes sharply. Herr Obersturmbannführer, what shall we do with the rest of it? Peiper studies the mountains of fuel drums. 50,000 gallons of hope and futility. He lights a cigarette, exhales slowly. Use what we can, he says quietly. Then burn the rest. The lieutenant hesitates, confused. Burn it, sir. Peiper's gaze hardens. Because tomorrow we'll need 50,000 more. The fuel burns bright against the snow, and in that flickering light, Peiper sees the truth he cannot say aloud, that Germany is winning battles it can no longer afford to fight. December 18th, 1940, the road to Stavelot. The roar of engines shatters the morning calm. Panther tanks grind over the frozen road, their treads biting through layers of ice and mud. Behind them, convoys of half-tracks and trucks roll forward, carrying men wrapped in tattered greatcoats. Steam rises from the radiators, white against the grey sky. Peiper rides in the lead half-track, his map spread across his knees. The Ardennes offensive, Hitler's last gamble, is meant to split the Allied front and seize the port of Antwerp. The plan depends on speed, on fuel, on momentum that cannot falter, but already it's slipping. Roads are too narrow, grumbles an officer beside him. We're losing hours. Peiper doesn't answer. His eyes flick from the map to the horizon. The snow muffles everything. Gunfire, engines, even the screams. Only the occasional crack of a rifle reminds them that the enemy is still out there. They reach Stavelot by midday. Smoke curls from chimneys in the valley below. Peiper orders reconnaissance. No destruction. We need bridges intact. But as his men descend into the town, they meet resistance. A handful of American engineers, desperate but determined, holding the bridge with a single Sherman and a .50 caliber machine gun. The firefight is brutal and brief. The Sherman burns, its ammunition cooking off in violent bursts. The bridge holds, for now. By evening, The column halts. The captured American fuel is nearly gone. Engines sputter then die. Mechanics crawl under the tanks, draining every possible drop from ruptured lines. Soldiers melt snow in helmets for water. Their hands raw from the cold. Piper steps away from the noise, boots sinking into slush. His adjutant, Lieutenant Werner, follows. Herr Obersturmbannführer, Werner says, "We've sent word for resupply." Piper lights another cigarette. "And from where, Lieutenant? The Reich is burning. The rail lines are gone. The depots are empty." He exhales, smoke mingling with the mist. "We're driving ghosts." But that night he writes in his field journal by lantern light. His handwriting is precise, the words clipped, soldierly. "We advance on hope and stolen fuel. Every kilometre is borrowed time." In the distance, the Americans regroup. The frozen forests echo with the growl of Shermans and the rhythmic thump of artillery. The tide is already turning, though no one yet dares to say it aloud. When morning comes, Piper mounts his tank once more. The offensive must go on. He glances toward the smouldering horizon, toward the west, and whispers to no one, "Even when we win, we lose." The column moves again, the sound of engines fading into the snow, toward a destiny that even the most loyal soldier cannot deny. December 20th, 1944, L'Église, Belgium. The snow has turned to sleet, coating every tank in a shell of ice. The roads are rivers of mud and frost. Colonel Joachim Piper stands beside his command Panther, its engine dead, steam hissing faintly from the vents. Around him, his once fearsome spearhead has come to a standstill. Dozens of Panthers line the road, motionless, steel beasts without blood. The captured American fuel is gone, every gallon consumed, every drum burned. Mechanics huddle around engines, trying to squeeze life from the tanks that once struck fear across Europe. One sergeant breaks open an American jerrycan, draining the last drops into a funnel. Another curses, "Kaput!" as a clogged carburetor refuses to fire. Piper surveys the scene silently. His breath fogs in the freezing air. Somewhere beyond the forest, he hears the low drone of Allied aircraft. The Luftwaffe is gone. The sky now belongs to the enemy. A radio operator approaches, headset pressed to one ear. "Sir, reports from Kampfgruppe Hansen. They've run dry near Trois Ponts. No movement possible." Piper nods grimly. He knows what that means. Without fuel, there is no blitzkrieg, no victory, no escape. Only steel carcasses and men freezing in the snow. He calls his officers together inside a ruined farmhouse, the only shelter for miles. The air stinks of wet wool, tobacco, and despair. A kerosene lamp flickers on a wooden table, casting shadows on their gaunt faces. "We have enough ammunition to fight for 2 days, Piper begins. "But without fuel, our tanks are fortresses that cannot move. We hold this ground until relief comes." A young officer slams his fist on the table. "And if it doesn't?" Piper's eyes harden. "Then we fight until the last round." Outside, artillery rumbles closer. The Americans are tightening the noose. The once silent forest now echoes with the crack of rifles and the whine of mortars. By nightfall, Piper walks the lines himself. He passes frozen corpses half buried in snow, their faces ghostly pale. Some are his men. Others, Americans caught in the chaos. The scent of fuel still lingers, but it's useless now. Spilled, burned, wasted. In his pocket, Piper carries a small notebook. Inside it, one line he has written again and again. "We have the men, we have the will, but the machines are starving." When dawn breaks, Piper gazes toward the distant ridgeline, where faint flashes mark the advance of American armor. For the first time, he understands what he has never admitted, that Germany has built an army too hungry to survive. He turns to his driver and says quietly, "We are not running out of fuel, Karl. We are running out of war." The driver stares at him, not understanding. Piper climbs atop the cold steel of his tank, eyes fixed on the horizon. In the distance, a column of Sherman tanks begins its approach, engines humming, tracks grinding, fueled, unstoppable. alive. December 22nd, 1944, La Glaise, Belgium. Snow drifts down in thick, silent waves, muting the sound of war. Piper's column, once the vanguard of Hitler's grand counter-offensive, is now trapped. The road east is cut off. The bridges behind them are gone, blown by retreating Germans and advancing Americans alike. Inside the shattered village of La Glaise, tanks and men huddle together in ruin. The once proud 1st SS Panzer Regiment now holds a mere few hundred meters of ground. Every building becomes a bunker, every window a firing slit. Piper moves among his men with the same cold resolve that made him both feared and admired. His SS troopers, hardened veterans of Kharkov and Kursk, look to him not for hope, but for endurance. He offers neither speeches nor promises, only orders. Conserve ammunition, he tells a machine gun crew crouched behind a church wall. Fire only when you see movement. Through the snowfall, they can see the silhouettes of American soldiers tightening their cordon. From the north, Task Force McGeorge. From the south, elements of the 3rd Armoured Division. Overhead, the constant drone of Allied reconnaissance planes circles like carrion birds. By afternoon, the first shells begin to fall. The church bell tower collapses in a spray of stone and timber. Piper's men return fire, holding the line with desperate precision. The sound of 88mm guns echoes off the frozen hills, rolling like thunder. But by evening, their world has shrunk to a few streets and a handful of tanks that can no longer move. Piper watches as one Panther, out of fuel, is used as a stationary gun, its barrel blazing until the breech glows red hot. When the final shell is fired, the crew sets charges and destroys it. An adjutant approaches him in the dim light of a ruined house. "Sir, radio intercepts confirm, no reinforcements, we're alone." Piper doesn't flinch. He studies a captured American map pinned to the wall. The Allied front lines are closing like a vice. His gloved finger traces the encirclement. "Then we break out," he says simply. "On foot if we must." That night, as the temperature drops below freezing, he gathers his officers around a dying fire. Their faces glow in orange light. Piper's voice is calm, deliberate. "We abandon the vehicles. Destroy everything that cannot be carried. Weapons, papers, fuel, all of it. We move east before dawn." A murmur ripples through the room. One officer protests, "Sir, these tanks, they are our life." Piper looks at him, eyes cold and distant. "They were. Now they are our graves." Outside, the men work in silence. They place charges under their beloved machines. Tigers, Panthers, half-tracks. Each one a monument to the empire that had promised invincibility. One by one, the night erupts in muted explosions. The flames reflect in Piper's eyes as he whispers to himself, "Selbst die besten Maschinen können ohne Blut nicht kämpfen." Even the finest machines cannot fight without blood. As the last fire dies, he turns to his men. We move, quietly. And so, in the frozen dark of La Glaise, 800 men of the Waffen-SS slip into the forest. Exhausted, hungry, leaving behind 50 tanks and 50,000 gallons of American fuel they once believed could change the war. The snow swallows their tracks. The Ardennes is silent again. December 24th, 1944. The forest east of La Glaise. The night is endless. Moonlight filters through the bare trees, glinting off icicles and frozen weapons. Piper leads what remains of his column, 800 men reduced to shadows, trudging through knee-deep snow. Every step crunches softly, every breath turns to mist. Their boots are soaked, their hands cracked and bleeding. No one speaks. The only sound is the wind and the distant boom of artillery, the Allies sealing off the remnants of Hitler's last offensive. Somewhere behind them, the village burns, its smoke curling up into the cold sky like a final salute to a dying dream. Piper walks at the front, his pistol holstered, his face pale with exhaustion. The arrogance and certainty that once defined him are gone. All that remains is a soldier's instinct, to keep moving, to survive. Lieutenant Werner stumbles beside him. "Sir, we've lost radio contact. The Americans control every road." Piper nods, his eyes scanning the tree line. "Then we don't use roads." The men push through the forest, guided only by a compass and fading hope. They pass abandoned panzer crews frozen where they fell, eyes open to the snow. Horses lie stiff beside overturned carts. The smell of fuel and death lingers in the air. The scent of an army that once conquered Europe. By dawn, they reach a small clearing. Piper halts, resting a gloved hand against a tree. Around him, the men collapse in silence, too tired to eat, too cold to sleep. He pulls from his coat a scrap of paper, a report from Berlin, intercepted days ago. It's little more than a whisper now. Fuel reserves exhausted, rail lines bombed, synthetic plants destroyed. For years, he had believed in the machine, in the tanks, the aircraft, the precision of German engineering. But here, in the snow, surrounded by men dying with empty fuel tanks, he sees the truth with perfect clarity. The Reich has built an army it can no longer feed. He looks at the paper, then crumples it in his fist. "Even when we win," he murmurs, almost to himself, "we lose." Werner looks at him uncertainly. "Sir," Piper's voice is distant. "We captured 50,000 gallons of fuel, Werner. 50,000, gone in 2 days. What is that against the hunger of the war machine?" He looks toward the horizon where the faint glow of artillery marks the Allied lines. "We were never fighting the enemy. We were fighting time." Silence follows. The men around them, hollow-eyed, stare into the frost. One of them, a young conscript from Hamburg, asks quietly, "Will we make it home, Herr Obersturmbannführer?" Piper looks at him, and for once has no answer. As the sun rises weakly through the fog, the men begin moving again, their shapes dissolving into the forest mist. The snow falls thicker now, erasing every trace of the road they once took to glory. Behind them, the frozen carcasses of tanks stand like tombstones, silent witnesses to the end of an empire. Piper takes one last look back, at the smoke, the snow, and the broken machines, then turns east. The Ardennes have swallowed them whole.